Welcome into the 90 plus 2 podcast. I'm Sammy St.Jean, and this is Jeremy Sriano, and this is the crossroads between pundits and fans. We are aspiring soccer journalists who have a love for the game, and this is our starting point. And now this is episode 2. Welcome back. This is exciting. We're getting on a roll here, and this is an incredible sports week, an incredible week of football. Jeremy, how you feeling?
Sammy, these are like the weeks that I look forward to as both an aspiring journalist and as a fan. I mean, there are so many events that are going on. You could probably give a list of everything that's going on right now, but this weekend is a very fun one, and I'm looking forward to it very much.
It's funny you say that there's a list because, well, I have a list and we're going to run through it real quick. MLB opening day, men's and women's final four, men's and women's championship, WrestleMania, I know is a big one for you, F1 Australian Grand Prix, Miami Open final, men's Frozen Four and championship, the Masters, Dallas Stars versus Colorado Avalanche, Bucks Celtics, Bucks 76ers, Celtics 76ers. If you can tell, I care about the East more than the West. Man City versus Liverpool, Man United versus Newcastle, Bayern Munich versus Borussia Dortmund, Napoli versus AC Milan, my game of the week, Brighton Brentford, and Chelsea Liverpool as a midweek matchup. So there is a ton to look forward to. Jeremy, give me your elevator pitch of what you're most excited about from this list.
Okay, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but the Frozen Four is actually next weekend because the NCAA
Oh,
does not like to contest with hockey and basketball. So this is the basketball weekend.
well, it's not this weekend. That's a week. That's like this week of sports.
Okay, I'll give it to you. But I know
That was what it was supposed to be. At least it wasn't meant to. Not to.
it'll be a week from today.
Yeah.
Real quick, I mean, we're going to be talking about all of these football matchups coming up, but how can you not be pumped about the showcase of the Immortals, the greatest show in all of sports entertainment? It's the 39th edition of WrestleMania. Sammy, I look forward to this every weekend. Now that it's a 2-night event, I get, Saturday and Sunday of just nonstop action. As someone who's been to a WrestleMania before, it's a long day when it was one day. I remember being at MetLife Stadium from 4:30 p.m. to 1 in the morning. It was a long day, and I had to go and take a 7:30 train the next day to go make an 11:30 philosophy class. So shout out to you, pal. I know you're proud of me for making a philosophy class. I remember, I forget what we were learning about that day. Might have been Locke or someone like that. I don't know. But hey, you mentioned Dallas Stars and the Avalanche. As a hockey guy, I really appreciate that you threw that on the list because those are some of the two best teams in the West there. But to me, it's WrestleMania, man. John Cena kicking off night one. We got Roman Reigns, Cody Rhodes ending night two, and everything in between. We got a father and son fighting each other, and Rey and Dom Mysterio. But enough about me. You'll probably, for those who follow me on social media, I'll be very wrestling heavy for the next few days or so. And I already have started. You can see all my retweets and quote tweets. It's literally all WWE content. I'm excited. But this is a soccer podcast, so we need to talk about some soccer.
Absolutely. And speaking of soccer, we got to, over time, we're going to get a little better on this and give ourselves a little more time to prepare, understand, become experts on this side of the game as well. But we definitely need to give some congrats and some credit to the 4 Women's Champions League finalists. Chelsea win in penalties over Lyon today. Arsenal 2-1 over Bayern after a 2-0 win in the second leg. That happened yesterday. Barca 6-1 on aggregate over Roma, the most dominant performance out of the Champions League games on the women's side. And then Wolfsburg advances 2-1 over PSG on aggregate. So credit to those 4 squads. That's something we're going to dive more deeply into, educate ourselves a little bit more before we kind of throw ourselves in the fire. But certainly talking about the women's side of the game is something we're going to include in the future, especially when the U.S. women's national team gets involved. That's an exciting time and something I know Jeremy's pumped to talk about. But yeah, absolutely. Jeremy, where are we at now with the world of football?
So, first of all, my early prediction right now for the Women's Champions League, I do think one of the English clubs is going to take it. I don't know if that's going to be Chelsea or Arsenal. I have this inkling that one of the English clubs are going to take it. But we now have a reoccurring segment called "What's the Tea," and this first little segment here is going to be passionate for my co-host, Mr. St.Jean over there. The first topic in "What's the Tea" is revolving around the sacking of Antonio Conte of Tottenham Hotspur. So Tottenham Hotspur currently They're in no rush, according to Dan Levy, to appoint a new manager. I believe an interim one was announced. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Someone that was in the club eternally.
Stellini.
Sammy, I am just going to let you take the floor with this one for the next, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes or so. I'll chime in when needed, but
Okay.
let me hear it. What's your initial reaction?
Okay, so there's a lot to this. Let's get a little positive before I get a little negative. Congratulations, Harry Kane, on announcing the coming of the fourth kid. Congratulations. Big ups to Harry Kane. He's now England and
I feel like that's the only
yeah.
positives you're going to have in this segment.
Well, anything with Harry Kane that I say is going to be positive. England and Spurs top goal scorer now after the international break as well. I saw this recent graph that like compared creativity to field progression, ability to bring the ball at the field. And he was literally in the top right corner of that graph, like far and away the best.
Good.
And like, again, yeah, and I understand like some of those graphs can be misleading, obviously taking it with a grain of salt, etc. But like, he's class, and I don't think he doesn't get enough credit for how good he is because Spurs are wasting him.
Before you go on this tangent, why do you think he's like so attracted by clubs like United? He's a world-class striker. You have a world-class player on your club, and I'm sure you're grateful for it, and all Spurs fans are. This guy, like when you chant the chant, he's one of our own, Harry Kane, he's one of our own. I love that chant because you see him grow up right before your eyes, and now he's a 30-plus-year-old man with now 4 kids, and he's being linked to all these clubs because he's a great player. But Sammy, I don't want to interrupt you anymore. Go ahead, pal.
All right, you did ask me a question though about why Harry Kane's linked to all these top clubs and why he is as good as he is, and it's something to me as someone who is still learning football, kind of from watching Harry Kane, that you need to watch is those number 9s aren't creative. They're not willing, or not that they're not creative, but they're not creative for others necessarily. And this man can pass the ball like a central attacking midfielder. This man is creative. This man sets up his teammates, and he's someone that can finish from all over the pitch. He's just got so many tools and assets. If this were baseball, he'd be a 5-tool player. Like he just has, I mean, maybe not speed because he's not a speedster. Aside from that, he's got everything in his bag of tricks. But he's one of those players that I think if City had not dealt with the most annoying man, Daniel Levy, to try to get him this past summer, I think he would be doing. I don't think he would have more goals than Haaland, but I think Man City would be doing better as a whole because I think he could fit into more top clubs in Europe than Haaland could. And again, Haaland's younger, plenty of time to develop, plenty of time to prove that statement wrong, but he's not as versatile as Harry Kane at the present moment. And I think Harry Kane's someone who you could slot into any club at that striker position, aside from maybe PSG because of Mbappe, and he'd make them better.
Do you think now you said, because you said, oh, I don't think, it's not the sense of them being less creative. Do you think the term might be like, you think most strikers are like one-dimensional? Is that right?
A little more, I guess, one-dimensional. Yeah, I don't want to like.
But I get where you're coming from. Like they have like one niche. Like someone's either really fast or has a great shot, or
really strong, or they're really good with their back to goal. Just like Harry Kane just got more versatility. He's just more versatile, and I think he can add in more aspects of the game than others. And I think I'll leave it simply there. All right, let me rip this club apart. So first, I want to just say that although I don't agree with his outburst, and we got a little bit into this, and he has seemed a bit checked out during his time at Spurs, I still side with Conte as a whole. Because this club is in shambles more than he is personally in shambles. Because he had an awful year, man. He went through that surgery. He lost a lot of people close in his life. He went through some stuff. You got to give him a little bit of a pass here. And granted, I'm not happy with how he ended things and that went, but you got to give him some credit because he was going through a lot in his own life. It's away from home. He doesn't live in England. So there's a lot I want to give him credit for because I feel like maybe on the last episode and just outside in the real world when having these conversations, I was a little harder on him. But there's a lot that needs to change at Tottenham. And this club needs to develop and buy into an actual project. This is just an endless revolving door of quality managers and Nuno. Sorry, I had to. That was the dumbest. I had to.
What a stab!
I had to. That was the dumbest appointment I've ever. That was awful.
That caught me so off guard. Sorry.
No, you're good. But like, look at Arsenal, look at United, look at Newcastle. All three clubs currently in the top four are having success because they bought into a younger manager and they let him develop his project. They gave them time. And granted, Ten Hag's kind of come in and accelerated that process. Newcastle, all these projects are a little different. I think Arsenal's the one that I'm most interested in because of how they did it from the
Yeah.
ground up. They didn't do anything too hastily. They didn't really force anything. They got in Arteta, somebody with a winning mentality. This past season, they brought in some City players that have that championship pedigree, and they might win a title. They might win the Premier League title.
I think they're more than likely winning the title. Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. Breaks my heart as a Spurs fan, but they deserve it. I have to give their project a ton of credit. Then you look at United, they bring in Eric Ten Hag, they back him, they bring in a quality DM in Casemiro, they bring in another center back in Martinez that's been awesome. Even in the summer, in the winter, even in the winter window when there wasn't really a whole lot of prospect for them to sign anyone, they at least brought in Weghorst to give a little support up front. That was something I know at the time you weren't even really expecting all that much for them to make a move. Then you look at Newcastle. I love everything about what they're doing. I thought they were going to throw in stupid money this past summer, but they were smart about their spending. And like you see a lot of these graphs on Twitter or whatever, like kind of charting how much Spurs managers, how much Spurs have spent with certain managers in the club. These have not been Conte's signings. He hasn't approved of most of these signings. And I think for Charleston, he kind of approved, but it was a little bit of a club signing. He wanted Perisic, but I don't really know about many others that were actually his signings. I do know in the past that he had his name on Kulusevski and Bentancur. But aside from that, I really don't think many of these signings were for him. And I know particularly he wasn't interested in signing Spence. That was a club signing. There's a lot of issues with that. And then I had a big issue, and I know this is something you did want to add on with Sonny taking personal blame for Conte not finding success. I think he said that yesterday or maybe 2 days ago. I don't know what you wanted to say on that part, but I just feel bad for Sonny because I know he's had a tough year, but he's a player that is impossible to hate, really impossible to hate.
That's exactly my point. Is that's the type of guy that Sonny is. Like, even though I feel like ever since y'all purchased him from Bayern Leverkusen, he's been that type of player. He will just defend whatever club is on his chest, and he's done that. You can argue with me if he hasn't. Like, I've seen the documentary. I've seen it all. I saw when Jose was there. To me, Sonny really genuinely cares about this club. He's brought in fandom from a whole other continent to, like, your global success is part of Heung-min Son. You can agree. And that's just the type of player that he is. Yeah, everyone on that club wants to win. Kane wants to win. Sonny wants to win. Hugo, I mean, you have your opinions on Hugo. I get it, but it does not surprise me that Sonny's gonna, say something like that. Because he is a very selfless person. He puts others, I think, before himself on that club. I really do. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It really is really not. I would love to have a player like Heung-min Son at United. I think we do have those type of players on United. Like, I really do think that, I saw a video today of, Rashford when, United was going through a rough spell, basically proving that, like, United are hungry. And we've seen that once they bring in a competent manager, that whole thing's changed. Now it's on the owners. Now it's on the sale of the club, which we'll obviously get into in the future. But going back to Tottenham, any team, any club would love to have a player like Sonny. And whatever manager you do bring in will be like, okay, now objective number one is to keep Harry. So I do feel like Harry's going to have a say. We did bring that up last week's episode, that as the leader on that club, I think he's the leader on that club. He's the best player at that club. Yeah.
I just need, all I have to say is that in terms of the next manager of Tottenham Hotspur, regardless of what I say when we get into that right after you finish your point, I want this to be a situation where Tottenham hands Harry Kane a piece of paper, and on the top of it, it says, "What manager will keep you here?" and let him fill in the blank and make it happen. There's no other choice. That's bottom line. That's what has to happen, because if you don't keep Harry Kane, your prospects for the future take a major hit, and I will cry. Finish your point.
No, so again, I mean, I've said what I had to say, but as we were preparing for this segment, you have a bullet point right here that I really want to highlight because as a United fan, I kind of understand, the turmoil with appointing a new manager. And yeah, I know that there is a gap in between Tottenham's last title and United's last title. Believe me, I understand that. And I'm not trying to be funny, but like you have a stat here that surprised me, and I didn't even know this. 36 managers since their last title. That's insanity. I thought after Fergie left, it was Louis Van Gaal, it was David Moyes, it was, in terms with like Giggs for a little bit, Carrick for a little bit. Then, then Oli, or no, then Jose got on. I love Jose. Then Oli got on, and now it's ETH. And it took a while. And there's a lot of swings and misses. I know we're both baseball guys. There were a lot of swings and misses with our respective clubs. I don't want to jump the gun. I think we might have struck a base hit at least with ETH, with good old Ten Hag. A title, now granted, say what you will about the Carabao Cup, it's still a trophy. And I'm sure that if Tottenham were in that position, you saw me when I was pumped when United won that game, when they beat Newcastle.
Well, you saw
I'm
me
sure
after Tottenham lost to Sheffield United. I was in
yeah.
shambles.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying. Like, I don't want to jump the gun right now because obviously the goal before the end of the season for Ten Hag is to get United back in top four. I think the league. I think I might have been busting balls about like, oh, there's a title race going on and United's still in it. I think they're out now. I'm safe to say that I don't think they're going to win the league title. Now, could they catch City? Maybe if they drop a couple results, which I really don't see them dropping that many. I think third is right where United want to be in the first year with Eric Ten Hag. But now for Tottenham, and we'll transition into Tottenham, you want to get back into that top four. I look at Tottenham and I think they're a name. Chelsea, a name. United, a name. Like there is that like big six, and Newcastle is in that upper echelon now. And it just so happens with a takeover. But Sammy, if you don't mind, I want to run by some potential managers with you, and you give me your opinion on where they fit in or not, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, let me just round out a couple points before we get into the managers.
Absolutely.
I just wanted to say something about so one, credit to Stellini for staying. He had a lot of connections. Obviously, he's been with Conte forever, yet he still was willing. And I believe Conte, I heard reports that Conte gave his blessing. But regardless of that, it's still a tough decision to make. He and Ryan Mason, I think, are the best option to not change things with 10 games left. It's very tough to throw a wrench in things when you still have a top four spot in your hand. And although it's very shaky at the moment, I still want to credit him there. The big issue I have with Conte, and I think the biggest reason why it was good that he left, Spurs injury issues are awful. Currently, their only healthy fullback right now is Pedro Porro. Perisic and Emerson just picked up injuries. Spence is on loan. Dougherty was released. Sessegnon's hurt. Davies is hurt. Reguilon's gone. Udogie is loaned. He still hasn't come over to the club. So they don't have anyone to play outside back. So you're probably going to see a center back out there. You might see Lucas Moura. I don't know what they're going to do against Everton on Monday. But they also have Hugo Lloris, Ben Davies, Richarlison, Bentancur, Bissouma. All of these players are injured, and it is tough. And then there was also reports that Romero and Richarlison were pleased that Conte is gone. There was a possibility that they would give an ultimatum to the club had he been a choice to stay. So that was something that I also want to take in just terms of, one, those two players have certain issues on the field in terms of Romero's got to be smarter and Richarlison's got to deliver. You were a big transfer for the club. I understand if maybe coach is being hard on you and you don't like that, that's okay. Toughen up and score some goals because you have to deliver if you want to have that kind of input. And he hasn't delivered since he's come to Tottenham. He had one good game in the Champions League. Come on, got to do more than that. And then look at the state of this club now. Paratici just got banned by FIFA. So up the Spurs. But yeah, you wanted to get to potential manager options.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll kick it off, but real quick, I have a point about Richie. Is it fair to say that he had a better World Cup than his tenure as a Spur?
His that just period of World Cup, he provided more than he did in his entire time at Tottenham.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so we have a list of managers that we prepared here, so I'm going to run through them all. You give me your honest opinion. Again, I'll chime in whenever. The first big name on the list, we mentioned him last week because he just got sacked and replaced by Thomas Tuchel, a former Champions League winning manager. Julian Nagelsmann is out there looking for a job. Give me your opinion on him and if he would be a good fit for Tottenham or not.
Considering Tuchel's off the table, I think this is the primary option. This is the one you got to pursue. Although Fabrizio Romano said he's not in a hurry. He's someone that has used the back three in his time. He did at Hoffenheim. He did a little bit at Leipzig. He was pretty adaptive overall in terms of just managers he would use or systems he would use. But I think he has some experience with the back three. He's a younger manager. So I like the idea of giving a younger manager a time to develop a project. You have not had a whole lot of success bringing in old proven managers. Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte have won everywhere they've been except Tottenham. So I think it's time to pick a different type of manager. Not that those two are very unique and very personality heavy. So I don't think you're necessarily going to find someone like that. But I do think the idea of having someone who can play a back three or at least utilize wing backs is very important, considering you have investments in Pedro Porro and Udoji from Udinese coming back for next season. So I think those are players you're going to want to utilize and have as a part of your future. So I think that's a pretty important aspect. But you got to bring in someone that's going to be a winning coach and have a winning mentality. And he has had a success with Bayern Munich. That's a club that is undeniably bigger than Tottenham Hotspur.
Now you mentioned you want a more younger manager. So is the possibility of reuniting with an old flame of Mauricio Pochettino off the table for you? You're giving me that reaction. I'm not in favor of it, but there are links, and we have seen them.
God, no, please, no. And this is my main gripe with the Tottenham fan base. And this comes to my unique perspective as a Tottenham fan coming in after the UCL run. They are so attached to this one shred of happiness because they have been so deprived for so long. And I cannot blame them because I've been around for a couple of years and it has been the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. Owen told it perfectly when he was trying to get me into becoming a fan of this club. And they are so attached to the possibility of this little shred of happiness that Pochettino can bring in. But you have to move on. There's just this thing for going forward, move on, and find someone who's going to be different from what you had. There's a reason it didn't work out in the long term in the past. Move on. And I think the other options, the last couple that we'll run through pretty quickly, are much better options. And I get it. I know you're fantasizing of that little bit of happiness as Tottenham Hotspur fans, but you have to be, and I know patient isn't fair to say because Tottenham Hotspur fans have been more than patient enough trying to wait for a manager to work out and to get trophies, but gotta not go back to old reliable. Whenever you break up with a toxic ex, the advice is not to go back to them. And not that I think Pochettino is toxic, but I think the possibility of that relationship will do more harm than good.
Someone that I think might be an interesting option. I don't know if he'll be the number one targeted by Tottenham. I'm a big fan of his, and I like the way that he manages Luis Enrique. He's a name that's been thrown around there. Any opinion on him?
Again, I still think Nagelsmann's the best choice, but he's probably maybe 2 or 3 on my list in terms of managers I'd consider someone with international experience. And I think I like the idea of bringing managers that aren't from England, the idea to bring in talent from other countries. Because he could bring in Spanish talent. That would be something that's very unique and something that not a lot of clubs have a ton of success doing. So I think that would be cool. And certainly add an interesting layer. And he did openly say that he's interested in coming to the Prem to England. But the big wrinkle in that is he wants a big club and he wants a club that has an interesting project. And Tottenham's project is horrifying if I'm a prospective manager. So I don't know if that's one he's actually going to consider.
Now, a couple names here just before we move on, but obviously Roberto De Zerbi's one, Christophe Gaultier, and even this one is
Very
bonkers in my
random.
opinion.
Yeah.
Zinedine Zidane. Now, he was linked to the United job. So one might make you think, if he's not taking the United job, does he even bother interviewing for the Tottenham job? You tell me about those last three.
So I think the biggest domino here, and even this, I think, goes to Nagelsmann as well, is what is the future of Carlos Ancelotti hold? And I think what Real Madrid wants to do in their future, and possibly even Chelsea, whether they want to buy into Graham Potter for the next season, is going to drastically impact what Tottenham can do. Because I also know Nagelsmann is someone who was linked to Real Madrid, and obviously Zidane, someone linked to Real Madrid, has been there in the past. And I know that he's a potential successor again to come back to the club, because Carlos Ancelotti is most likely, from what I'm seeing, going to end up in Brazil as the coach of the national team. So I don't know what they're going to want to do afterwards, but from what I'm seeing, that seems like the most likely option. Gotta love in general what you've seen from De Zerbi over at Brighton. He's been fantastic. They have a really cool project going, but I feel like he's not going to give up on what they're doing there, considering what they've been able to do. So I would expect him to want to stay there.
They could get Europe.
Yeah. And then Gautier is another option. And this one's going to be, how does PSG want to handle things? Like, he's another manager that has some potential, that has the, I think could add something to Tottenham and wouldn't be a bad option should you not get your Nagelsmann, or by all means, Zidane if you want to go get that big fish. But I don't think I don't think he would be a terrible option, but he's not one I'm going to hang my hat on. All right, so that's the tea. Yeah, that was enough of me talking. Let's jump to the international break, and we'll hand it off immediately to the U.S. men's national team, so you get a little break from my voice. Jeremy, break us down there. I'll jump back in when we get to the rest of the international break.
Right. So we had some CONCACAF Nations League action for the United States men's national team, taking on Grenada and taking on El Salvador. Two games are two different stories. First game, they played Grenada 7-1. Someone I really want to highlight, and we'll talk about him as we go on, is Ricardo Pepi. I thought he had a great weekend, or a great little international break, scoring 2 against Grenada, and then he got the lone goal in their 1-0 win over El Salvador. Now, one of the big issues regarding the United States men's national team during their most recent World Cup run, which ended at the hands of the Dutch, was the opinion yet fact that there was really no number 9, or in terms a striker, a forward for the United States men's national team. They were experimenting with players like Haji Wright. Even Pulisic got played as a false 9, meaning like he wasn't playing fully up top. He was kind of playing more closer to the midfield as like a center attacking mid / center forward kind of role. Did it work? I mean, Pulisic did get the lone goal, sacrificing his manhood against Iran in that last game, which saw the United States move on to the knockout round, eventually losing to previously mentioned the Dutch. But I really thought that this weekend was a really big, in your face, I can do this job for Ricardo Pepi. So right now, Pepi is a property of Augsburg, but is on loan at Groningen. Now, there are many links to him moving clubs in the near future. I can see it happening. I don't see Augsburg as like his, like, oh, I'm going to come back and help Augsburg go back to the. No, I don't see it. I do think a move to the Prem, a mid-table Prem team, someone I threw out to you and we kind of feeded off each other, was someone like a Brighton and Hove Albion, which I'm like, I would be all for that. I'm all for Pepi getting time for a quality team like Brighton, right? Now, the reason why I bring up Pepi is because, and I bring up the idea of, who's going to be the number 9 come 2026. Now, 2026 is ways away, but there's competitions like Nations League, like other competitions before the World Cup. I keep saying Premier League for some reason, but there's going to be some competitions in the next 3 years before the U.S., Mexico, Canada Tri-Wizard Tournament World Cup, where all 3 of them are hosting. And that question is going to be answered soon. And to me, I do think that Ricardo Pepi is, in my opinion, is the number 9. He's literally wearing the jersey number right now. Now, yeah, am I a fan of Jesus Ferreira? Currently plays for FC Dallas. I am. I just think they took the wrong striker. I really do. And I don't know if that's Greg, if Greggy B, you know my beef with him, which will actually get, that's hinting at a future topic for this current podcast. But was I upset that Pepi got left off? A little. And I'll tell you why. Pepi has already developed his talent on a European stage. No disrespect, I love the MLS, but there's got to be something. You got to give me something. Like Walker Zimmerman, as a Red Bull fan and as a USMNT supporter, he gave me a little something. I was really upset with him after that Wales game, which cost the Bale penalty, obviously. I like Pepi, but there's another name being thrown around who is being linked to switching his allegiance to the United States men's national team, and that's Folarin Balogun. Now, Balogun, to me, he comes in and I think he makes his team a whole lot better. The only reason right now is he was born in New York, but his family's from England. So right now, his only international experience is with England. However, people were seeing him in Orlando, and there are talks about him switching his allegiance in international play to the United States and going back to his actual homeland. He's from New York. This is your immediate answer to the number 9 issue. So right now he currently plays for Middlesbrough. And if you don't know anything about Middlesbrough, they're on a bit of a run right now. And they are led by someone who is very near and dear to my heart in Michael Carrick. I love Michael Carrick. I eventually believe that Michael Carrick will be managing a team in the Premier League, maybe Middlesbrough. Maybe they get there in the near future. However, we're going back to this issue about, is there a striker in the United States men's national team? Balogun will be that guy. I'm going to say it right now. He's 21. The beauty of this is that the main striker options, Balogun, Ferreira, Pepi, they're all young kids. They're younger than you and I, Sammy. And we have to remember this too. And this is the reason why I get really passionate about Ranger fans and saying like this kid hasn't developed in the way. He's still a kid. Like when you get drafted in the NHL, you're 18 years old. These kids are going to different continents, different countries, playing for a club that they had no idea maybe existed other than, if they might have saw it in FIFA while they were playing a video game. Let's be real. Like, do we know a lot about Augsburg and Groningen? No, but we researched them. And I think you just got to let these kids develop. Yeah. Does it suck that they don't have a Harry Kane? Sure. They don't have a 30-year-old striker that's going to get them goals, every single tournament, every single game. They don't have that guy. Their guy is Pulisic. Their guy is McKennie. Their guy is Adams. None of them are strikers. Yeah, I get it. The main issue with me wasn't striker. It was center back. And Cameron Carter-Vickers and even Walker Zimmerman at times proved me wrong. Okay, let's run it back. Let's run it back in 2026. Let's do it. But now it's, okay, first of all, Balogun has to accept this proposal. He has to say, yeah, I want to play for the men's national team. It's a process, and eventually they'll get it done. But honestly, there's really no need to panic right now. I just get mad at the people who are panicking. So they're in a good spot. Once they find a manager, we're back. It's coming home to America.
All right, so let's jump back across the pond, and for some of the rest of the international break, try to be fairly quick on this section. I'm going to run through the results. Jeremy, you tell me what stands out for you. First of all, England 2-1 over Italy, 2 goals in that first half. equalizer in the second half from a surprise goal scorer that isn't even playing in Italy right now, or even in Europe. He's playing in Argentina. And then you're gonna Portugal. Ronaldo, quite a break. He had quite a few goals. 4-0 over Liechtenstein. Upset over Poland for the Czech Republic. France 4-0 over Netherlands, and Mbappe brace in that one, but a fairly competitive game despite the 4-0 result. Croatia and Wales draw 1-1. Spain 3-up over Norway without Holland. Kazakhstan over Denmark. Gonna let that one marinate for a second.
Yeah, I have my opinion on that.
Yeah, France 1-up over Ireland. Solid performance for them despite the loss. Croatia 2-up over Turkey. Bit surprised there. Turkey played fairly well in that one. I thought they deserved a little bit more. And then I think the one you're going to have the most opinion on, Scotland 2, Spain 0. Scott McTominay with a brace. He had a big international break, and he will be mentioned later in the podcast during the 3 stars when we get there. Jeremy, what piques your interest?
Oh, flower of Scotland, when will we see your like again? Hey, let me be real with you here. Let me be real. Biggest win in Scottish footballing history. And I saw this team go to that COVID Euro tournament with England and Italy. Obviously, we'll mention that one because I thought that game was tremendous. I thought that was just a great display of football on both sides. But Scotland, man, I was watching this game full 90 minutes, and you're talking about a team that doesn't have a striker. It's been Scotland for a while. Scotland's been really good defensively. They have Premier League players in Andy Robertson and Kieran Tierney and Scott McTominay. He can also play center back as well for this Scottish team. But man, I give a lot of credit to Callum McGregor of Celtic FC. You know, players like Ryan Christie, Landon Dykes, who I know he's a striker, but I throw him under the bus sometimes. I've been hoping for the resurgence of Che Adams a little bit. But this is a big win for Scotland. And it puts them atop of Group A, a group that has Norway and Erling Haaland and the Spanish club, who I think will eventually win the group. But I do think that Scotland will finish in second and get that automatic bid to the Euros. I think this is a big result for them. They dominated Cyprus in their game before their fixture at Hampden Park. Sammy, we talk about footballing atmospheres all the time, you and I. When Hampden Park is sold out and they have a lone bagpiper playing Flower of Scotland on the roof of that stadium, I want to run through a brick wall like William Wallace in Braveheart. I will have blue face paint on. I will be backing this Scottish side in the Euro. You will bet you're behind. Absolutely. But enough with the Scottish rant. Up the Scots. Yes, sir, I can boogie. I can boogie all night long. The England-Italy game I thought was tremendous. That was actually going on as we were recording episode 1. But I want to see, like, from you, and obviously Kane, record setter. I think England are one of them. I don't know where they stand exactly. I know the rankings change every time. England, to me, are one of the most complete nations. It's just like they have beef with Southgate about, finishing the job and whatnot. But to me, going into 2024 for the Euro, I think England are the favorite to win, in my opinion.
So just to give you a little note there, England is currently 5th in the overall ranking.
I was going to say top 5. Who's a top?
Barcelona, or not Barcelona, Brazil, Argentina, France, Belgium, England are your top 5.
So
USMNT at 13.
I love that, even though it's
above Germany, which is going to transition us very nicely into the upset of Germany. The one game I didn't mention because I wanted to hold on to it. Belgium 3-2 over Germany. They were up 2-0 after 9 minutes. Romelu Lukaku, Yannick Carrasco, your 2 goal scorers for Belgium. Kevin De Bruyne put the cherry on top with the 3rd goal. And I just was very excited to see Belgium give Germany a good game and actually upset Germany. I do have my own gripes with Germany overall, just because I think they're a club that is, or they're a country right now that's very similar to the USMNT, where they need that nine. They need a striker that they can hang their hat on for reliable goal scoring. And at the same time, I think Spain is one of those countries right now that they just don't have a consistent scorer up front. And that's giving them trouble in games when they're playing against Scotland, who are going to be tough, they're going to be physical, and they're going to make getting clean looks inside the box very difficult. And when you don't have a striker you can rely on, and we used Harry Kane a lot in this episode, like Harry Kane, you're gonna struggle to a certain degree. You got to have a nine you can rely on. He doesn't have to be quite as versatile as a guy like Harry Kane, but he's got to be someone who can reliably finish and get you goals. He's got to be someone who you have at least a little bit of fear of when they get the ball in a dangerous spot. And I don't think either of those countries really have that type of guy currently. Maybe there's a young guy developing, but right now, at this very second, those two countries I think are in a tough spot currently at that striker position.
Yeah, you call it an upset. I think it's a I think I'm going to play devil's advocate. I think Belgium have had a better product than Germany ever since Germany won the World Cup in 2014. Belgium, to me, they're always that nation that's like favored to do well, and then and they just they just fall a little bit short, right? They've done it and they did it in 2014, 18, most recently. To me, they're just like one more piece away from just world success. Look, I'm not impressed with the German product. I'm really not. I think their core is getting old. Um, yeah, they have some wonder kids that are kind of making their way downtown. As Vanessa Carlton would say. But to me, Belgium's just got a better overall product. And call me out if I'm wrong. And even the listeners, like if you think I'm wrong, I want to hear it. I want to hear your reasoning. But to me, I will pick Belgium over Germany any day right now. It's just, again, sorry, Carl, but that's just my opinion.
So I understand where you're coming from, but also Belgium hadn't beat Germany since 1954.
Which
Um,
shocks me. It
it's
does, because I
yeah,
think they're better. They're a better team. They are.
but I think given that fact, it's an
Right.
upset. I think that's
Yeah.
what makes it an upset is if you haven't beaten a team since well over 50 years ago.
Right.
Boeheim was at Syracuse and retired longer than since that last victory.
But look at
So
but look at the rankings. So it just shows that. They back me
well,
up. Belgium is
no, that's fair. But again, when you beat a club you haven't beat since the 1950s, that to a certain degree is going to be an upset.
right. I
Um,
get that. I understand.
I think the last game we should touch on here is I wanted to ask you your thoughts on Kazakhstan, Denmark.
Okay. Now I'm not gonna take anything away from the win. Very impressive result from Kazakhstan. Really a nation that we as a footballing culture really don't hear a lot from. So this is a huge result for them. Look, I'm going to say this right now, and this might be my United bias coming out, but as a Tottenham supporter, you could agree. This result does not happen if Christian Eriksen is healthy. I rest my case. He's just one of those guys. He's one of those dependable midfielders that is box to box, can create a goal, can score a goal. Um, and look, I love Hoiberg. I think the two of them together, really play well. I picked Denmark. You were with me. I picked Denmark as a dark horse to go far in the World Cup, and they didn't even make it to the round of 16. I felt like a dummy. But the real question, and it's yeah, this is gonna go back to the theme of the episode, is like, well, the theme of the episode really is like Antonio Conte and like struggling.
Sam crying.
Right. It's up top. Like they've had Martin Braithwaite for like years. I feel like I got to play as him in like FIFA 15. I forget what club he played for, man, but they've had Braithwaite. He played at Barcelona. He was at Barcelona very recently. And then they have a young kid in Casper Dolberg who was like a wonder kid who's now kind of developed on the world stage a little bit. But to me, their main players have always been Schmeichel and net, which is true to say, and Christian Eriksen. And to me, Christian Eriksen is the backbone of the Danish program. And without him, it's a tough loss. And I still think they're recovering. Even United have to fill in. They filled in with Sabitzer. Now Sabitzer got hurt in the game with Austria. So those central midfielders, man, they don't say that like your best players play center mid for a reason, right? Like to me, your best players play center mid, and that's why Eriksson is like such a backbone and a reliable player.
All right, so that was the last international break of the season. We're on to the home stretch now of club play. There's a lot on the line, a lot to play for, a lot of big games this weekend over the next week. Let's run through them real quick. I'm going to list them off. Jeremy, tell me what you're pumped up about. First
Absolutely.
off, the Prem. Man City, second in the table, taking on Liverpool, currently sixth. That's a big fixture. Chelsea and Villa battle for 10th. Brighton and Brentford, the 7 and 8 spot, currently in the table. Newcastle and United, Spurs, Everton on Monday, Chelsea, Liverpool on Tuesday, and then Wednesday you get a United Brentford fixture that I would say is going to be overall underrated for some people. And then West Ham,
Fair.
Newcastle has a lot of impact on the potential relegation battle. Move over to La Liga, Atletico Madrid, Real Betis, Villarreal, and Real Sociedad. In the Bundesliga, this one's huge. Bayern Munich, Borussia Dortmund, Thomas Tuchel's first game at the helm of Bayern Munich, RB Leipzig, and Mons. And then you move over to Serie A. Inter Milan take on Fiorentina, who's struggled a bit this season, but won 4 of their last 5. They're on a roll. And then I think this is the most important game of the entire weekend. Napoli, AC Milan. They'll play in the Champions League as well come April 12th. They'll start the first leg, but I think that's going to be a nice little teaser of what you're going to see on the European stage. And finally, Ligue 1, PSG and Lyon, and then Rennes and Lens. Jeremy, what strikes you?
Well, that battle for 10th really tickles my fancy, Sammy. No, I'm
Yeah.
kidding. I mean, no, I actually I love Chelsea and Villa, but how can you not like have a reminder that this game is going to be televised on ABC? It's Bayern and Dortmund, man. Like, all I'm going to say is right now, Tuchel is very lucky that this is a home opener for his reign. If this was at Signal Iduna Park, if I was a gambler, I would hammer Dortmund to win. However, this might go split. I can see Bayern escaping with a win. This game could go either way. To me, there's just like so much talent. You know me. I have our resident Bayern fan, Carl Winter, really gave me an earful last week because I have a soft spot for Dortmund, and I still do. I'm going to stand by that. I'm hoping that Dortmund win the Bundesliga. And it's not because I'm tired of Bayern winning it all, Mia San Mia. Like, I get that, right? To me, Dortmund just, like, I get their system. I do. We heard it last week. I get their system. This is a fun one. When you see these two teams, like they played in a Champions League final, and it came down to an Iron Robin, 80th minute goal. Like, that was the decider. Like, these games do not disappoint. So I look at that one. That one's great. And for the Prem, obviously it's City Liverpool, right? How can it not be? Like, and I was telling you this before. This could be a game where it could be, 1-1, or it could be 4-0 City, right? Like, I feel like Liverpool just give us those games where they'll blow out United, but then they'll lose, they'll drop a 7 spot, right? Like, it's a teeter-totter with them. But really, the matchup in Serie A, I know the point differential is a little bit drastic, but 1 versus 4. Napoli, Milan. I'm wearing the Milan kit, even though I basically gave my allegiance to Naples last week and said the Strianos are from Naples, but it's a beautiful kit. I got this when I was working at New Balance. Great kit. But the world needs to respect Serie A. I do think so. I think, when NBC bought the Premier League rights, we brought the Premier League to America. I think Germany's slowly creeping its way here in the North American continent. Spain's always been at the top with Madrid and Barcelona and Atletico. Italy, Italian football needs respect because it's not just Juventus, guys. I get it. Juve was a very big powerhouse in the 2010s. It's not just Juve anymore, and we're seeing that right this second. So my 3 matchups are Bayern Dortmund, Man City Liverpool, Napoli, Milan. Obviously, United, Newcastle. It's a rematch of the Carabao Cup is also a good one. But as a neutral supporter, because I'm going to be angry, if ETH drops some points there against Newcastle. But this is just adding on to that narrative of what a heck of a weekend we have, Sammy.
Yeah, I just want to add a couple games that you didn't touch on that I think are interesting, maybe underrated, slept on. First of all, Brighton Brentford on Saturday. I think that's going to be a really important fixture because those are two teams that I would say are performing better than probably expected. They're two teams that have a ton of talent, a ton of younger talent. And I would say I'm most impressed with what Brighton has done this season. They've been incredible. They have a lot of really exciting players. Matoma stands out for me. So that'll be a cool game to watch. I think Newcastle United's going to be excellent. I think Spurs Everton is going to disappoint me. I think. Well, I mean, that's you're getting. What are Tottenham players supposed to do?
Yeah, no.
I I I'm pessimistic about the rest of the season. Obviously, I want to and hope, fingers crossed, Tottenham are going to hang on to that fourth spot. But I just think there's so many question marks around them right now, and there's so many issues. They need a hard reset, and having to deal with Champions League football and the pressure. I mean, the money helps a new manager that's coming in and probably increases the quality of the manager you can bring in if you have Champions League football. But also having to deal with that level of European football makes it a lot harder to prove your performance locally in England in those cup games. They got to improve their overall performance in England, I think, more than anything else. So I do think that although Champions League football is something it's hard to complain about, it's tough when you have to balance that many games. Granted, the next manager won't have to deal with a World Cup in the middle of their season, so that'll help in terms of just overall longevity. But given the injuries and issues that Tottenham had this season, dealing with that quality of competition amidst a struggle is tough overall. But again, I'm most pumped up about Napoli AC Milan. That's the game that I want to watch on Sunday. I don't care whatever else is going on. That's where I'm parking my fanny. I'm watching that game. I'm going to be dialed in. I you were not expecting fanny, were you? But that's a little teaser towards the Champions League, and I think those two clubs are going in. And I think the form that Napoli's in, they have, I would say, the top players right now at certain positions. They're young, they're developing, and they're players that you might not see wearing Napoli kits next season. So those are guys that I think are worth watching towards this season because I don't know if USMNT will be back. I don't know if Kim and Jay is going to be back. So those are guys I think you want to take advantage of watching this special run for Napoli because I don't know how sustainable it is for them to keep those kind of players given the outside influence that'll come in. But we're going to transition into our fun section at the end, but a little speed bump here. Ted Lasso, we're going to dive into a little deeper into it. Season 3, episode 3. Fast forward if you didn't watch the episode yet. We're going to briefly review the episode. Jeremy, take me away.
So I don't know if you guys have been caught up on Ted Lasso, but if you have,
skip this part. If you watch Ted Lasso and have not caught up, skip this part.
Yeah, pause, go ahead a little bit. Look, I think season 3 is kicked off with bangers. I think the first 3 episodes are great. I think the introducing of the new character, Zava, or as I'm calling him, fake Zlatan. It's Zlatan. It's Zlatan, right?
Yes. Shout out Philip Glotty. He tweeted this and he's like, what that last episode reminded me most is that I miss Zlatan. So I wanted to shout him out. I think that was a great point.
But yeah, so I really like what they're doing with Zaba coming to Richmond, the way that Rebecca got him to join the club, competing with her ex-husband Rupert, who owns West Ham United, and took Nathan as the head coach over there. Loving the role of Trent Krim, the independent, not with the independent now in season 3, but he's writing a book on AFC Richmond and their story. I mean, how can you not want to write about AFC Richmond? I mean, I love them so much. I'm starting to look like Ted Lasso right now. I'm trying to get the hair down. I'm trying to get the mustache right. You said last episode, you remind me of Ted. I'm going to try to, obviously try to do that, physically. But who doesn't want to live like Ted Lasso? He's the absolute man. But I love the dynamic with Roy kind of opening up a little bit. He's kind of showing his like personal side and the whole, all the Julie Andrews references and the Sound of Music reference hit home because that was the one show I was in high school. And then, I can't say it because we're a clean podcast, but the line about them being, he reminds me of my mom's Precious Moments collection. It hit me so in the feels because my mom collects Precious Moments, and that really like made me laugh out loud. It was that funny. But there's also some mystery with one Colin, going up that character, see how that develops. But overall, season 3 has just been producing some bangers here. So I'm excited for next week. I love having a show that I can look forward to. I have The Mandalorian right now, which is, Wednesdays as well. So it's like, what do I prioritize? I'm prioritizing Ted, but I always catch up on Mando. But dude, the hype is real with Ted Lasso. There's a reason why it's won Emmys. And yeah, I'm glad that you're a fan of the show as well.
Well, the next episode that's leading up is going to be either the day before or including the match of Richmond versus West Ham. So that'll be extremely exciting to look forward to. The only conflict I think that you didn't touch on that was very interested in was Keely and our boy Roy. I still ship them. Yeah. I still hope that they end up together. I just don't want Jamie and Keely. So we're getting into our reality TV side of things here. Right. But yeah, no, that's I'm hanging a lot of my emotional stability on the quality of that relationship going forward. I need Roy and Keely. I think that just makes too much sense. There was a lot of tension in that episode where they were kind of just like, looking at each other, kind of like, there was a lot of tension. We'll just leave it there. That's fair. So a lot of excitement. Same with Sam and Rebecca. A lot of interest there in terms of just whole Sassy and Ted.
We love Sassy Smurf on this podcast. We love Sassy and Ted. Their dynamic is A1. I want a wife like Sassy Smurf one day. Hands down.
All right, let's get down to business. Let's have some fun. Post Ted Lasso. It's our fun section, 1 through 6. Let's run it through. We're flopping who did what from last week. So I got the first 3. Jeremy's got the second 3. Up first, this game in history. We're going back to the year of my birth, a game I obviously did not watch, but I picked a game that was in 1999 because I figured that'd just be kind of an interesting thing to go back to my birth year. Look at a game that I didn't personally witness, didn't really have a ton of knowledge of, and it is the Champions League final in Barcelona, Camp Nou, Manchester United versus Bayern Munich. United picking up the win 2-1 in about as exciting a fashion as you're going to find. They were down after the 6th minute after Balser scored through a wall on a free kick, kind of bent it around the wall a bit there. And then you got a very late equalizer in the 90+1. Not 90+2, but 90+1.
No, that would have been sick if it was 90+2.
They literally skip over 90+2, actually, just because they wanted us to fit in perfectly as Geringham scored the first one. Your man, previous manager Ole, scores the second in the 90+3. I mean, he helped win you a Champions League. Yeah, he's got to be at least kind of your man to a certain degree.
As a player, yes.
Hey, you can have your beef as a manager, but he's got to kind of be your guy. He put the finishing touches on a Champions League.
Yeah. Club legend.
So that was awesome. Obviously, I do kind of wish that they had better. I know they didn't have the technology or as much going on, but I wish they had better stat keeping and stuff because I was just kind of curious more on the stat comparison and stuff. Possession, obviously, they didn't keep track of to the same extent the way they do stuff now. They didn't have XG, all that kind of stuff, but I was able to watch a couple of the highlights of the goals and everything like that. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, that was my game in history. Locks of the week. We're gonna get spicy here. So,
okay, I'm ready.
Jeremy, you went 2-0-1 last week with yours. I wouldn't say you were conservative, but I feel like you stuck with your guns that you were kind of leaning on. I feel like you had those. They weren't super risque picks necessarily. So we're gonna just put my record here, and we're just gonna either let it ascend. This could be like a March Madness bracket. This is either gonna go to the moon or
or you're gonna tear it up tomorrow.
Yeah. Right. So here we go. First one. Fiorentina over Inter Milan, 2-1 final. That's what we got, game 1. Then we got Dortmund, Bayern. I got a 2-2 draw. in that one. So
Okay,
that's what
long
we're
draw.
rocking with
Okay.
here. I think there's gonna be a little too much excitement about Tuchel coming in. And I think
Yeah.
there's going to be kind of a Bayern still riding high. They're still first in the league for a reason. So I think that's going to kind of even out, level out for 2-2. I think Fiorentina's just got a little more going for them at the moment. 4 out of their last 5 games. I actually believe it's 4 in a row. So I think they're kind of riding their hot hand coming after the international break. I feel like a few less players on international teams, so they'll be a little better rested. They'll have that time together over the break as well. And then we're going to be getting, I think, real spicy. This is the one that I'm also kind of wishing happens. This is Villa 1, Chelsea 0.
Whoa. The
I
villains. The villains
I
taking the dub.
see. So Chelsea's from London, so I don't necessarily have the same love that you mentioned for Chelsea earlier. I know I don't have the same like historical beef, but if you're from London and you're not Tottenham, whether your club's in a better state than mine, I'm obligated to dislike you.
Mm.
So that's just the way it goes. So Villa over Chelsea is the way we're riding. And I also just do think Chelsea struggles to score goals. And in a game that might be as, tightly contested, as important in terms of current standing, because they're both tied on 38 points in the season. So I think that one's going to be a heated matchup. I think it's going to be a fun game to watch. I think it's going to be chippy. But I think Villa's going to get like a 70th, maybe early 80th minute, and then kind of hold on a little kind of battering at the door for the last 10 minutes. I think they're going to hold down the fort for the last minute push. And then I also think Atletico is going to beat Real Betis. But the first 3 are the one we're only counting 3 towards our
Yeah, you got to
locks.
count 3 for the record. Yeah.
So I'm putting that one as one just to kind of cover multiple leagues. I wanted to throw that one in there and say that I think Atletico is going to beat Real Betis there. But the first 3 are the ones that are going to count towards my record, and I think are a little more interesting to hang my hat on, because I do have Fiorentina upsetting Inter Milan. I have Villa upsetting Chelsea, and I think Dortmund and Bayern. I don't necessarily think it's an upset necessarily one way or the other, but a draw is a very specific result, specifically 2-2.
Mhm.
I don't like lose necessarily if my score is wrong, but it's got to be the result has to be perfectly correct in
Right,
terms
right.
of win
Exactly.
or loss. It can't be a draw and you get like a push or anything like that. Nothing
Yeah.
like that. Now my 3 stars. First of all, Nathan Ake. Let's give some defenders a little bit of love. Got to get a little love. He had a perfect rating in one of his matches for the Netherlands over
A
break,
tan.
and
A tan. A
so
tan.
So I wanted to give Nathan Ake a little bit of love for his performance there. I know they didn't play very well against France, but do want to give him credit for the way he played in his first game, and overall they were very dominant in that first matchup. So I want to give him a little bit of credit. Second one, it's my guy. It's Harry Kane. He's going to get the second star, and it's really due to him becoming England's top goal scorer. Now he's the top goal scorer for England and in for Spurs in club and country, and he's got a 4th kid on the
He
way.
did. Yeah.
So
There you
got to
go.
got to give him some love there. That's a lot going on in a span of a week. So credit to Harry Kane. That is basically like my football god at the moment. So please stay with my club if you see this. Please stay. I'm gonna be a sad man if you don't. The final one, we talked about him. Scott McTominay came out of absolutely nowhere. Scotland, who wins, he leads the way, and so give him his roses there. He gets the final star, and so that's it. But I'll hand over the reins here to you, Jeremy. Take us home with the final 3 topics, and then ultimately it's going to be our Ted Lasso quote of the week.
Yeah. So right now we're going to continue the Scottish theme of this episode with our random footballer of the week. Now, I have a feeling that some people listening might remember this name because it is one of the most epic names in all of footballing history. We're going a little far back. He's still currently playing. He's playing in the Scottish Prem right now. We're going with Robert Snodgrass. This guy, like this, when I think of Scottish football, now I think of Scott McTominay. I think of Andy Robertson. I think of Kieran Tierney. But when I was growing up, when you played as Scotland in FIFA, they were not good. They're still, in the video game. But Robert Snodgrass was that guy. Started in the Rangers system, but then eventually went to Livingston's youth team. So he played on the senior team at Livingston from 03 to 08. In that tenure at Livingston, he went on loan to Sterling Albion and then eventually got sold to Leeds United. This is where he started picking up traction in world football. Played for Leeds United for 4 seasons from 08 to 12, then went to Norwich City. I do vividly remember him donning the yellow and green for the Canaries from 2012 to 14, then going to the Tigers of Hull City. So he's been flirting around with some Premier League and championship teams. He goes from Hull City from 14 to 17. Then he gets sold to West Ham United. This is where he really got his name. This is the peak of his career. Plays for West Ham from 17 to just 2021, so not too long ago. Went on loan to Villa during now the first 2 seasons, so he wasn't really getting a whole lot of time on West Ham's first team. Then was eventually sold to West Bromwich Albion in 2021, 2022. Then to Luton Town. So he was playing in Luton Town in the championship, and then he eventually said, you know what, I'm getting older. I want to go back to Scotland. He is now at Hearts of Midlothian. Currently 21 appearances for them, 1 goal so far in his tenure. So his time might be coming up, but you got to give some love to the 35-year-old Robert Snodgrass. He's just one of my favorite Scottish names of all time. So that's going to be my footballer there. Now, Sammy, are you ready to enter
fired up.
the
Let's go.
Thunderdome? Welcome to 10 questions, Sammy. So if you guys remember from last week, we each have a random club where our co-host is going to guess said club with only 10 questions. Now, the rules are the club has to be within the top 5 leagues of Europe. So that is England, France, Italy, Germany, Spain, and the MLS. So I have my club. It's right in front of me. Sammy, are you ready?
Yes. First question, MLS or no?
No.
Okay, I feel like with it being you, that had to be my first question. Is this club in European competition?
I just want to clarify. No.
Okay. Ooh, interesting. Are they in the Serie A?
They are not. So that's 3. So you have 7 more.
Are they in the Liga?
They are.
Okay. That was pretty quick for getting, fairly quick for getting the league. Not in European competition, so they're 7th or lower.
Uh-huh.
Hmm.
Well, I shouldn't say anything, but go ahead.
I mean, I just know that for a fact.
Yeah,
They have to be 7 or lower.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Do you? So this isn't. I don't think this counts as my question. You can tell me if this is a strike. I just want to ask: do you know what their next matchup is? You know who they play next? Because that was going to be my next question. Was going to be about their next game.
I mean, it's right in front of me.
So okay. So are they playing against a team in match day or match week 27 that is in European competition? Are they playing against a team in European competition?
Correct me if I'm, hold on. Again, I want to clarify. My answer is no.
So they are not.
They are not. No.
Okay. Is that 5 questions or is that 6?
5. So 5 more.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So we got this down now. Okay. Okay. Does this club have red in their badge?
They do.
They do have red in their badge. Interesting.
4 more, pal.
Are they close to, I would say, are they above or below 15th in the table?
Ooh, now you're playing guess who? You're narrowing it down, pal.
I know.
They are above 15th.
Is it Getafe?
It is not Getafe, so that counts. So you have...
No, that's fair.
You have 2 more?
I think 3. I thought that was 7. You can tell me if I'm wrong. This is it's kind of up to you to keep track of them. I'm firing my questions away.
Okay, I mean, I kind of lost track, but you're either at 7 or 8. You're either at 7.
That's what I'm saying. You can be the judge here.
All right, I'll give you 3. I'll give you 3 more questions. I'll give you 3 more questions.
So you said they're not playing a team that's in the upper. They're not playing a European club. They have red. Do they have any other color in their badge that's not white or black? Again, very weird questions in here.
Wait, so
in terms of is there another color that I already confirmed red? Is there another color aside from white or black? Because they're not actually colors; they're absence or we're not going to debate colors.
Yes, there is another color in their badge.
There is another color in their badge. Okay, so that takes So that takes off at the Athletic Club. That's why I thought it was going to be next.
2 more questions.
Um, this is tough. This is tough. Is it Sevilla?
It is not Sevilla. You have one more question, which might just end
Hmm.
up being a guess. It has to be a
I
guess.
it has to, I don't think it has to be a guess technically. I think it can be a
Okay.
clarifier. It
Okay.
can
It can
be
be
put it to the final
clarifier. Then you
question.
then you have one guess.
So
Clarifier.
I think I want to use it. I want to use it as a clarifier because I've put
Yup.
myself back against the wall here. I'm trying to think of like badges here.
Uh-huh.
Trying to think because like I don't want to like get too specific into like standings or whatever because I think that's
Uh-huh.
kind of gonna give it away.
Right.
We'll say, do they have blue in their badge?
They do have blue in their badge. Give me your guess right now.
So is it Celta Vigo?
It is Celta Vigo. Well done.
Bang at the
Celta
buzzer.
Vigo.
Hopefully that wasn't actually 11 questions and we have to put an asterisk next to
I
that.
know we might have
But
to put an asterisk. We might have to listen back, but I'll give it to you anyway. We
regardless,
picked
it's
up.
a dub. We might have to asterisk it. But
Yeah, I
that one
know.
was a little tricky. That was a tricky one. That was a tough one.
Yeah,
But
no. Celta Vigo, real quick. They were actually in the semifinals with Man United the year that Jose Mourinho took them to the Europa League final and won it. So Celta Vigo was at one point competing in European football, but
Mhm.
as of right now, um
I'm also now realizing how many clubs have red and blue in their badge in La
that's why
Liga.
I picked the red and blue. I was like, I'm
So
like, he's I'm
ridiculous.
like, I'm like, please pick Osasuna, please pick Osasuna. And then you're like Celta Vigo. And I'm like, oh yay, you got it. But no, it's like
Gosh.
I just love the Celta Vigo badge. Reminds me of a cross. I would love their kit one day. Maybe add it to the
Fair enough.
collection.
All right, Jeremy. Last part before we get to our quote of the week and sign off is you.
Okay. So our debate topic. Now this is for both of us. Who is your ideal manager? Now this is a reoccurring topic here. We talked about potential Spurs managers, but who right now is your ideal manager for our beloved United States men's national team? I will go first. It's not Greg Berhalter. No, I'm kidding. I mean, it's not. I know there's talks about
It's
him
not.
possibly coming back. Um,
No.
this might be. This is such a homer answer. To me, it's Jesse Marsh. I hate to say it. I saw what this guy did with clubs in the MLS. I saw what he did with the Red Bulls. It was revolutionary. Some of my best times as a Red Bull fan were when he was at the helm. I love the passion he brings. To me, he belongs in America. Like he just belongs. He's a former United States player himself. To me, it's Jesse Marsh. There's no if, ands, or buts. Sammy, give it to me, pal.
So what I think, and you do kind of get a little bit of that when you bring in Jesse Marsh, but I think they need a non-MLS, non-United States.
Correct. I know.
So
Ah,
so hang
you
on,
know
this
this.
brings me to two, potentially three, but I'm gonna cross off one. One of those options could be Patrick Vieira. I'm gonna say no, but that is
Okay.
an option. That is an
Okay.
option.
Actually, that
The
goes with
other, the
day.
other, Jose Mourinho. And I think
Whoa.
he would be spicy at the helm. And I
Yep,
think what
Jose
the USMNT needs a culture change. They need a culture shock. And I think no one better than Jose Mourinho to do that. But personally, after listening to him on a couple different podcasts, after just kind of seeing him talk Champions League, after all of this, there's one link that I'm excited about more than any other, and it's Thierry Henry is a link that I have seen
Whoa.
that I would like probably more than anything else. And I just love the way he talks about the game. He doesn't have a ton of managing experience and doesn't have a ton of success doing so. He has links. He's a former assistant with Belgium, and I think the excitement that Thierry Henry could bring as someone who found success, someone that player or fans of the game of the MLS look up to, like Jeremy did as he was a kid growing up near the New York Red Bulls. He's got kind of that connection to the fans in recent memory. And I think him and Jose Mourinho are my top two candidates.
It's funny that you say like, oh, the United States needs a guy that isn't, linked to MLS. I mean, this guy literally coached Montreal Impact for like a year or two.
Yeah, I know
But
that.
no, like, okay, I have my opinions with Thierry. I personally, this isn't a dig at him. I think he's a better pundit than he is a coach. I think he's very entertaining. I think that panel with him, Carragher, Micah Richards, is probably the most entertaining thing on TV. Although you can't go wrong with Carragher and Gary Neville just bashing each other back and forth. But the CBS Sports does it right. They really do. I'm really impressed with their coverage of world football. Thierry would be an interesting option. Jose would be a whoa. Like this is like real
I just
deal.
don't. The reason I put him 2 versus 1 is I don't know if they can actually land him / convince him to leave
Yeah.
Roma. So that's why I kind of had. I would put him maybe above, but I something about. I just love the way Thierry Reed talks about football and talks about the
I
game.
know.
So
Yeah.
that's what really sells me. And I do understand your point about him not being as proven as a manager, maybe not finding that same success that he's having as a pundit. But I don't know. I just think he could do something to the American game the way he did as a player.
Yeah. No, and we'll see. But to me right now, my answer is anybody but Greggy B. That's it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right, Jeremy, give us a quote.
Okay, you brought up Patrick Vieira. It's actually pretty fitting. So again, this one is from the legend himself, Ted Lasso. A palace made out of crystal seems mighty fragile to me.
Perfectly said. I think that so this has been the 90+2 podcast, episode 2. I'm Sammy St.Jean. That's Jeremy Striano. And this is the crossroads between pundits and fans. We are aspiring soccer journalists who have a love for the game, and this is our starting point. That was episode 2, and we will see you next week. Thank you guys for tuning in.